is going to be really awkward, just so you guys know. We're best friends, so. I'm gonna ask her like incredibly personal questions about like, how are things with you and your boyfriend? And, like, I've been away for 3 weeks. I really missed you.
Missed you.
It's gonna be like real weird.
I
No
can't
kidding.
take you
I have
seriously
paper.
at all.
I have a paper with questions on it. So this is my lovely friend, Lorene Scafaria. I don't know how many of you saw Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, but it was amazing.
This is everyone who saw Nick and Nora's playlist, actually. I'm kidding.
True. And luckily, half the people didn't pay because they're our friends and they came to the premiere. So that was terrific. They owe you some money.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with kind of an easy question. How did you become a writer, Lorene Scafaria?
Well, Dana, I started writing actually as a child. I grew up in New Jersey, and we had this thing called Young Authors, which I thought was a really great program. It started in first grade, and we kind of had to write a book at the end of the year every year. So first grade wasn't that hard. It was kind of broken up into
What was your
like
book
different,
about in first grade?
Well, it had different chapters, like if I were a plant, what would I be? I was
What
a
were you?
yucca. I was a
Yucca.
yucca plant. I don't know why.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't either.
That's amazing. First grade.
Yeah.
Look at her. She's like a genius.
Well, yeah. If I had an elf, what would I do with him?
What would you do with him? Seriously.
I apparently kept him in a cage, and I fed him pizza, and that was
That's actually pretty nice.
yeah, it was good. It was I stretched the imagination, and so I started writing at a really early age, but I think the lying really came into full effect in around fourth grade. We had this thing called Book It, which was for children in it was like fourth and fifth grade. If you read a certain number of books a year and did like reports on them, you would earn these gift certificates from Pizza Hut, which was very important. And so I made up books because I obviously wasn't going to read any of the real ones. So I invented books. I invented the author and the title and the plot, everything that happened
So
in
you
the
did
book.
book reports on books that you invented.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And the authors' names are always like Victoria Clanson. They were like very fancy sort of names. And I made sure not to recommend the book too highly so nobody sought it out or anything like that. I was always like, it was just okay. And I never got caught. And I wrote a lot of books that year, and I took my grandma to Pizza Hut like every month, and she was really happy about it. And so that kind of progressed into some writing, and in high school I started writing screenplays.
This is the thing I think is amazing. I don't know about you guys, but like I didn't even understand that screenplays existed until like I turned 25 or something. I really didn't. I guess I thought people made the movies and the actors made the movies and the directors made the movies and the actors said things that they were thinking about and felt like saying, and then someone turned a camera on. Like I didn't understand that people actually wrote that stuff. And this one in high school had
Well, let's not go crazy. I mean, these are screenplays, remember? So things like I'll just read you this page. This was in Action Screenplays.
She's a whole folder called Action Screenplays from like 12. Crazy.
View of a drug hideout. View of narcs on all sides of house. Hear clicking of guns. I haven't progressed much from here. Above skylight, see 5 men sitting at round table talking. Matt on walkie-talkie. When I say now, break down the damn door and shoot anything that moves. You got that? Oh, and save Monroe for me. Okay?
Like
See inside, men talking, Monroe smoking. Monroe. Gentlemen, we have at least 3,000 kilos of cocaine boarded on that boat, ready to be shipped tomorrow. Puffs, in parentheses. Now, if there are no complications, we will touch down in 5 hours previous of the shipment. That'll give us just enough time to contact Chapman and get his boys ready at the factory.
See, clearly you believed in the idea of write what you know. Like you're like, yeah.
Yeah, this was exactly the kind of
exactly
shit
what
I
you were
was
going
mixed
through.
up in Jersey. Yeah. So there's a lot of that.
So you knew you wanted to be a screenwriter since you were a baby.
Yeah, since I was a very small child. And then I sort of, got lost in plays for a little while. And I wrote some plays and I put them up in New Jersey. They were kind of like.
Was there anything was there a dude named Sharky in one of them by any chance?
This isn't fair when you know too much. That's awful.
How was Sharky? How did he play out?
All right, so I put up a play when I was, I wrote it when I was 16, and I was really into David Mamet, so there was a lot of, like, cursing and a lot of this kind of stuff. And it was about 4 men in an office. It was a very Glengarry Glen Ross kind of direct ripoff. I don't know what else. It was not, an homage in any way. It was just directly Glengarry Glen Ross, too. And it was 4 guys in an office, and it started, lights up. Oh, and it starred like 2 16-year-old friends of mine as 40-year-old men in a business office. They always talked about like the numbers and paperwork. There was no real specific job, and so one guy like sharpens a pencil for a really long time, and then looks up at the other guy and says, "You know what Sharky said?" And the other guy says, "No, what?" And he said, if you can't make a deal in 2 martinis, then you don't belong in the business. And that was.
But this is the thing. I've actually seen the videotape of this play, and we're watching it, and it's pretty ridiculous. And she's like, "Okay, haha, I get it." And I'm like, "No, seriously, what happens with Sharky? Like, leave it on. This is really intense. Sharky. Like, I gotta find out what happens with the business and the numbers, and the things with the stuff." It was like pretty good. I thought. I was intrigued. I really wanted to know.
It was good. It was called A Straight Flush. I'm sure there's be a revival of it somewhere. The theater that we put it up in is now a shoe town. It was a bold experiment. And then plays kind of progressed back into screenplays. And the first real script I wrote was an adaptation of a play that I put up in New York called, sorry, I choked on the title, called That Guy and Others Like Him.
Hey, listen.
And yeah.
I really like that play. I'm not going to lie to you. I've seen it. It's really good.
Well, they put it up out here, which was really trippy because
cool.
I did it when I was like 21 and I was in it, of course, and then saw it completely done by, brand new people, directed by somebody else, like 8 years later. It was really weird.
I think people here would be interested to know how many screenplays you wrote before you actually, like, got paid for the first time as a writer.
Oh, well, before I got, yeah. I mean, I think it was like the 6th one was the first to kind of even be seen. I don't really know that the first the 5 before it really they counted, Dana. They just didn't sell for one reason or another. But no, nobody really gave a shit about them at all. And then the 5th one, or maybe it was 5th or 6th, was my old roommate and I teamed up to write a children's adventure, which was completely different from anything either of us was really trying at the time. But like Shrek was big, and Harry Potter, and everything was just kind of fantasy for a little while. So we tried to sell out, and we did, and it worked because it was the first one that people read, and that got optioned by Revolution Studios, and we kind of toiled away on that for a little while, and got fired. It got sent to an ex-boyfriend of mine to rewrite. That was uncomfortable.
Awkward.
Yeah, I don't think he
Tell
did
me
it,
about
but
that. How did that
some other
feel?
time? Yeah, that was the first time I got paid for it. But Nick and Norah was it was cool. Yeah, it was great. I didn't like work again for 2 more years, so that wasn't great. I thought I could like tell my dad to like. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be famous, and then like 2 years went by, and I was like, oh, help, please help with money, please send money. So it took a little while before anything kind of worked back up again, and then and my writing partner and I had kind of split up, and we're writing again separately, and so that was kind of the dark ages, I would say, was having like a taste of it, and then being sent back to the dogs right away. So I started I wrote this script called lovely Rita Meter Maid. I came up with that title myself. I think it's rather brilliant. And I was sort of just interested in writing about people with weird jobs, and that seemed like a weird one. I was actually at the House of Pies on Vermont. Does anyone know that, House of Pies? All right. I was there, and there was like, I don't know, maybe like 13 meter maids sitting around a table, like all eating together. And I swear to God, I was just like leaned back like this the whole time. I wanted to hear everything they were saying to each other. I don't know why. It was just like seeing a
I've
different
taken to pulling
species.
out like recorders, just being creepy, being like,
Slide it over. You don't mind if I just put that there.
recorded. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable.
They, I listened to every word, and they were literally high-fiving about what Melrose was like that time of year. They were like so
everything
psyched.
you think when you get a ticket is totally true.
Yeah.
Like they're like,
They're liking it. They're loving it. They're into it.
That's amazing.
So I started doing all this research, and I Googled meter maids, like
Wikipedia.
yeah. Research is so hard now. So I Googled meter maids and kind of came upon this thing where this woman had, they gave some kind of incentive, some kind of commission, and there was a meter maid in Santa Monica who they called like Hawkeye or something like that, and they gave some kind of commission. She billed for $4 million of parking tickets that year and earned like a commission of over $1 million from the city, and then they had to stop doing that. So I was like, yeah, I have to write about that. And we had a director attached for a brief spell, and it sort of just fell away. And I was actually told something really sad, which was that, hey, if you can't get these 5 actresses, then kind of forget it. And I thought that was really depressing. And I don't know, it didn't say a lot about the state of affairs for
you kind of jumped to one of my later questions, which I resent you for, but I'm gonna probe deeper into it, which was, you said you kind of like writing movies about people who have interesting jobs, and we've talked about this before, and we started to realize that we kind of tend to write scripts about the same things over and over again. It's just there's a theme. Everything is different, except there's a theme that keeps coming back for us. So I thought maybe you could talk about that, because I think that's helpful when people are trying to figure out what screenplays to write, and maybe you can talk about, because Man and Wife in a way is similar.
Yeah, I think it's like jobs, but more than jobs, it's like identity, a sense of identity. That was something that gravitated me towards the Nick and Norah book, because obviously it wasn't like they had interesting jobs. I mean, they're high school students, but I loved that they were both fish out of water, that he was a straight guy in a gay band, she was a Jewish girl at a Catholic school. I just loved that they both kind of didn't belong and then sort of were finding their place. So themes of identity, I would say. I mean, there was a meter maid, there was an efficiency expert, there was realtors. There was Man and Wife, which was is a script about an immigration officer who interviews recently married couples to figure out which ones are shams or not. Real job, government job. That's a government job to sit down across from 2 people and be like, you're not in love. That's yours is a joke. And who is that? What does that guy do? He goes home and what? He looks at his wife and then asks her what color his toothbrush is because he's not so sure. They know each other. That just blew my mind. So yeah, things like that, exploring that. I don't really know where that came from. I didn't have that many interesting jobs before.
It's possible that it comes from your own interest in your own identity. For example, do you have any
That's deep.
alternative identities? If so, what are their names? How old are they? What are their backstories?
Why are
And
you doing that?
And have you ever considered
you
letting
didn't
them
say you'd do
letting
anything
them
like
write a
that.
script? Because I think the script might be kind of interesting.
Dana's referring to the fact that I have an alter ego that's existed for 9 years, 9 unhealthy years. And she talks to everybody, including my parents. And
I have a full-on relationship with this person.
I'm not
It's not
gonna have-
Lorene. It's a totally different.
you know,
person.
Beyonce has her alter ego when she goes on stage, and it makes her feel sexy. This one doesn't. This one makes me feel Like, I can say anything in that voice, and it's not a problem.
Her name is Abby. She's 5 years old. She's an alcoholic, and she is hypersexualized. We're not sure why. We think she may have had some abuse in her past, and I think you should let her write a script. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think we should interview Abby at the WGA. That would be
so much more interesting. It really would. She's got a much more checkered past than I have.
What do you want to talk about how Nick and Norah came about? Because I think people might be interested to hear the development of that.
I read the book in galley form 4 years ago. It was sent to me. The authors of the book were represented at the same agency, so someone in the book department sent it over to me. I lost my mind a little bit. I kind of just, I don't know, the book had that effect on me of where I missed New York. I missed falling in love. I missed like being young and unjaded, and yeah, and that kind of summed it up, and so I felt like I had to do it. And
how did you get? So you wanted it. Did you go after it at that point?
Oh,
and then
Dana, I went after it. I wanted it. Yeah, no, I like told my agent, like who's also your agent, that that I had to do it. We got in touch with producers who then read the book and kind of knew one of my scripts at that point, and so the producers became interested, and then together we got a studio interested, and as soon as like all the pieces kind of came together, we found out that there was another writer interested. He had gotten another producer interested and another studio interested, and so we fought. And we tried to convince the authors that we were kind of the right group to sort of take their baby and cut it up. And
since I've never done an adaptation before, how much do you have to pitch in terms of what your take would be, like to the writers?
Well, it's tough because you don't want to be like, and then I'm going to change a bunch of shit, and then you're going to have to put up with it. No, I mean, at the time it was just about convincing them that my voice would kind of lend itself to the story. It was, I remember one of the authors of the book, Rachel, said that she was on the treadmill at the gym and reading this script of mine called The Mighty Flynn, which was the thing I'd written right before that, and about the efficiency expert who gets fired from his own job. And she said that she stayed on the treadmill for an extra 10 minutes, so she thought that was like a good sign. And so I don't really know. I just knew it was like, I said, hey, I'm from Jersey. Come on, they're from Jersey. I just tried to like appeal to the best sense of kind of sisterhood on that. And I had lived in New York, and I'd eaten at this restaurant that she ate at, Veselka, which when I read it in the book, I was just like, I lost my mind because I'd gone there for like pierogies at 4 a.m. So the fact that like we actually shot there and it actually like is in the movie now, that's a trip. That was crazy. So yeah, the authors picked us, and 4 years later there was a movie. So.
And given the fact that you'd wanted to do this for so long, ever since you were really, really little, actually, what did it feel like for you when it actually happened? Like when the movie actually came out and you actually saw it on the screen, or the first time you saw it on the screen and it was happening. What did that feel like for you? Did it feel like everything you thought it would be, or was it a letdown? Or was
I mean, it was out of body for like, it was out of body because I had seen it a lot. I'd sort of become like desensitized to it. And then, we went to the premieres, and it's just a certain type of crowd. I don't think I felt like pure joy until, well, you were there, Dana. We did this little limo crawl where we took a limo to a couple different theaters on opening night and got real shitty. And everyone turned into an infant. Wait a second, because
there's pictures of Heather T. Roy in
You stole a cart. Everybody
a
stole
cart
these little like
at
stroller carts at the mall.
that like children are supposed to be in. They're probably not even safe for children, to be honest with you.
No,
but
they didn't
our
look
friends
good.
were in them. Diablo's pushing her around. She's pushing Diablo around. Everyone's
But we like
hammered.
rounded a corner,
We're
and then
in
there was
serious
a wall
trouble.
of like mall security guards.
And by the way,
and
in a
everybody-
post 9/11 world, it's
No,
not funny to
that
these
wasn't
people
funny.
like at all. They were like, get off the carts and leave immediately.
we had a pregnant woman
Like,
with us,
we had a
though.
pregnant
We were
woman with us,
obviously.
and we kept pointing at her, being like, "We're fine. She's
Yeah,
pregnant. We're all okay."
We couldn't be that crazy. We're with the
Baby
pregnant
inside
lady.
her,
Yeah.
for God's sakes.
Yeah, that was
We're
great.
good
That was,
people.
but like looking up at
was
people's
fun.
faces, that was nice.
And people were
Yeah.
laughing and loving it.
Stop
They
it.
were. Oh, and the weird thing is, I don't know if you guys know that Lorene was actually in the movie and played a very small part in the movie. But for some reason, every time we went into a theater, it was the moment that Lorene was on screen, and we were like, "That's really weird." We didn't plan it that way at all, but it was.
I make out with Seth Meyers in the back of a Yugo.
I love you.
For once. For once in my life. Yeah, that was it. My big
So-
moment.
Can you talk about your other career, the other thing you do to try and, I don't know, help you with your writer's block / is also who you are? I think it's exciting. People might like to know. Lorene's a really great
I do
singer,
dog rescue.
songwriter.
Let's just stop. I rescue dogs. And
She does have sort of a
orphans.
sideline dog rescue business that involves her. We've all decided that after we saw, I think it was Iron Man, we all
This is
decided.
a real superpower I have. I don't want to like joke around about
I'm not
this.
joking. I'm
I don't
telling
even know that
people
we
what-
should tell people about
I'm telling
it.
people what your superpower is. We all decided after Iron Man that we should all have superpowers, and my superpower is I'm nap girl. I can nap under any circumstances, like no matter what is going on. The world could be falling apart. I'm like, I'm gonna take 20, just like fall asleep. And she has this amazing ability to. She has a sixth sense about when there's a dog who's
In
off a
danger.
leash or in danger. It can be miles away, and she's like, I think there's a dog missing 17 miles away. Let's
Just did
go.
it yesterday. This is not a joke. Did
So
it yesterday.
We were driving up Laurel Canyon, and all of a sudden I'm in the passenger seat, and suddenly the slams on the brakes. I get thrown forward. She's like, "Get out of the car!" And I look over, and like really far away, really hard to see, there's a dog. I roll out of the car, roll down a hill, and go save the dog. And then we have this dog in our house.
Yes,
Yes,
that's my side.
But she's amazing at it. That's your side project. No, she's a singer-songwriter. She is. It's very exciting.
No, I did this as a kid. I loved songwriting. I loved playing piano and overall just getting attention. So I hadn't played piano in 10 years because, well, I mean, I played, but I hadn't owned a piano in 10 years since I had moved out of my parents' house at 6. And so I got this piano as a gift, and suddenly, like, didn't want to write a script again, ever. No, just because it was like, there was something completely, songs are 3 minutes long, everyone. Like, movies are long. That's too much time. Too much time. So songs, fine. So yeah, I just started writing songs, and then the writer's strike happened, which happened while they were shooting Nick and Norah. I got to go for like the first like 6 days of shooting. I planned this whole New York, pilgrimage, and then was just, yeah.
Couldn't step
We
foot
were
on the
standing
set.
in front of a giant stuffed rat, like, instead.
right.
So yeah, we which is okay. Fight the power. Residuals. But yeah, no, I really, it was just a tough, like, go of it after, like, so much buildup. I mean, 4 years of kind of working on drafts and, just afraid things are never going to see the light of day. And then we were in a bar.
It was so weird.
We were in a bar, and we walked outside to, like,
and we were like, oh, they're shooting some movie around
some
the
stupid
corner,
movie.
some
Yeah, and it was-
stupid movie. And, we
and
were
it was mine.
drunk, and it was
And yeah, and you freaked
I went up, I
out.
was like, oh my God.
They were like having a rain day. They were having like the worst night. I mean, it's like an
I'm
all-night
hugging
shoot.
People. Everyone's like, please leave.
Get out of here.
immediately.
Yeah. So we had one run-in with them, but other than that, I wasn't there for when they were shooting it. So I was kind of just antsy and losing my mind, and oh, Lyric, and Yeah, so I ended up recording an album during the writer's strike with a friend of mine in his little studio apartment.
And have you ever considered trying to work music into your movies?
I have considered it. I considered it too intense, too much work. No, I'd love to. Like once was a film that a recent sort of inspiration, which so I'd like to make twice if possible, but that's about as close to it. I remember when Moulin Rouge came out, sort of becoming like wowed again by the musical. I'd hidden that so deep within my love of musicals. So yeah, that kind of just got reemerged, and yeah, maybe someday.
So what do you do? This I was thinking might be a handy question for our audience here. What do you do when you are having trouble with a screenplay? Like if you're experiencing writer's block or you've found a problem you don't feel like you can solve, what are the ways in which you problem solve? No pressure.
Like drinking. First of all, it's such an isolating job, obviously, that I think the first thing to do is like seek help. Go talk to someone about it. Tell someone you trust. Yeah, say no. So I get a lot of help from my friends. I think I just think it's the kind of thing where you could be stuck on a choice for so long of just like to go left or right, and it's so stupid and it's so meaningless, but it can like hang you up for weeks. And I think like sharing that with someone, sometimes just saying it out loud makes you come to it yourself. So I think that's pretty important. I'm a fan of the long drive. I'm a fan of getting in the car and driving. I think.
So you hate the environment, or?
Yeah. I drive my hybrid car. No, I don't care. I am going to drive. I think that's the only way to kind of. You know what it is? I sit there and I watch movies all the time. I sit and write, and I kind of, I find it's easier to tune out a movie I've seen 100 times than a song. For some reason, that seems to kind of get me going a little bit more. I get wrapped up in that more. No offense to the many movies I watch
I've always wondered how that helps you instead of hurts you, because when I'm writing, sometimes she'll watch like The Graduate and like movies, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna write The Graduate. Like I find that to be a lot of pressure. And I also, whenever I'm trying to finish a movie and I'm like so exhausted I don't think I can make it, when I see movies, the only thing I think is, their work is done. That guy's an asshole. Like, I just get so mad. I'm like, he's done with his script. It's a movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Nichols is an asshole.
Mike Nichols is an asshole.
He's an asshole.
I mean,
The Graduate's an asshole.
Next to my picture in the hallway.
But see, if you watch The Graduate every day for 5 days in a row, which I will do.
I've seen that. I've been a part of that.
Yeah, you lose your mind like just enough to where something like breaks. Something just cracks off and breaks, and like you hear a sound, a frequency you've never heard before. I believe it. I really do. I think like you can drive yourself mad, but in kind of a good way. And then suddenly I was like, the fucking Graduate, like something in it like occurs to me, and it becomes the most, it becomes a key to kind of unlocking, I think, those little, like, it's like code breaking. So sometimes, you really have to, you really have to watch how they've moved those pieces around. And sometimes that can kill you, for sure. Something that just happened recently, because I'm in block. I'm in writer's block right now. Everybody, hi, I'm Lorene. I have writer's block. It's awful, and so I went and every now and then my library, though extensive and impressive, is not enough, and so I had to go to the movies, and I like going to the movies by myself, so I don't have any like. It's guilt-free, like you don't have to worry, does he like it? So I went by myself, and I saw Rachel getting married, and like. My head exploded. It's like it's
so great. If
it's like it's so great, but it's one of those things that like you get so stuck on. Like over structure, but like over structure. It's like just too much structure. You kind of suddenly are ahead of the structure, and it's bad. And then you see something like that, and it sort of just reminds you that like storytelling is kind of storytelling. There are like certain rules, of course. I think Rachel's getting married, so that's the movie. Like that's what you're seeing. But everything else is just like these pits and valleys, and I don't know. For me, that was kind of eye-opening. Yeah, just recently.
How do you, when you're starting a movie, where do you start? Obviously you have sort of the general idea, but then where do you go after that before you actually sit down to write? How much happens between coming up with the idea, and in some versions you've pitched it, in other versions you haven't, you're just writing it for yourself, whatever. What happens between those two stages?
There's a lot of like mental writing. There's a lot of like scribble on a lot of different pieces of paper.
Does your house look like the guy from A Beautiful Mind lives there sometimes with a lot of Post-it notes?
I had a meeting once, and maybe I was passive aggressive before going into it. I was sort of upset about it, but I had like a buck slip with me with my like Beautiful Mind, like chicken scratch, and like maybe 12 different colored pens, like all over. Yeah, on the back, on the front. And she saw it, and she was like, oh, no. What do you, no.
I was like, you can't take that into a meeting. They're going to get freaked out. You look like an insane person.
Like, you look actually insane. It's not like, oh, she's cool, she's an artist, she's a genius. It's like you're out of your mind and you need to be put in an institution.
I've had to bring like
I typed it
big,
up for you, I think.
You did. I really appreciated that. You put it on like one of those things that printed out the little lettering for me. You have one of those machines.
Printer?
No. Dick. What is it, a stenograph? What do you call those things? Your labeler, your friggin' label maker. Your pea toucher, my pea
I just
toucher.
created labels of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I have a pea toucher.
No, I brought in like a big piece of oak tag and kind of gone like, here's where this character's going to start. Then we're going to bring them up here, and then they're going to go down there. It looks like Madden or something by the time I'm done with it, but it gets the job done.
So you do mental writing and chicken
So I do mental
scratches.
writing. And then, I really, only recently, bless you, sir. Only recently, because of the block, am I kind of trapped in index card land right now, and I can't handle
But you're
it.
so good with index cards. You help me so much with your index cards.
Oh,
when I'm
well, yeah.
panicking and things get really horrible, Lorene always goes like, okay, we can do this because everything you have left to do, we can fit it on index cards.
Well,
And
you
so
make
she
a
writes a little
list because you
to-do
can
list
cross
on
things
the
off a
index
list.
cards.
It's very
I
important
love
to do.
to cross things off. It really helps me. And so she would make it, and then I'd be like, hey, Lorene, is it a bad sign that I have 37 index cards with like such really small writing?
No.
But it fits on
It
index
fits
cards.
on it. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of like trapped there right now, but
I'm back in town, and we're going to talk about it.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, no, I kind of like to write the first 30 pages without outlining. I think that's a good way to kind of get in the characters' heads before you sort of make these arbitrary decisions about where they go.
So would you say you hear the voices of the characters before you start to write, or would you say you start writing and you have a scene in your head and then it just kind of emerges from there?
I might have a scene in my head. The beginning is impossible. I don't know about anybody else. Page 1, awful. I don't understand it. I think like page 10 I can start on, and maybe I should, frankly. But yeah, no, I think like the beginning is usually the toughest sort of place. That's why I'll then I'll put on like Jerry Maguire, and it opens on Earth, and he says Earth, and I'm like, this jerk gets to just like open on Earth and say Earth, and now we could kind of zoom in on our main guy. I'm like, oh, yeah, I wish I could cut to Earth, and then like.
Is that like when you're in a development meeting and they say, well, what we need is we just need like our you complete me, or like our,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah, if I had it,
Yeah.
it'd be in the script. I don't have it.
That was
I can't write like that.
That was
Of course I
right.
didn't, if it was to be in there.
For Nick and Norah, we ended up doing reshoots, or AKA additional photography, and we reshot the opening. So sort of everything that happens before that club scene where all the worlds are colliding was new stuff. And so start the opening over again was the request, and it was like, really? Okay. And then it was like, how do you like open on Nick, this character that you wrote a year ago?
And an entire movie exists of him after this
Right,
point.
so kind of just
know
like-
all that.
Right. prologue.
that.
Yeah, open on Nick being born. Like, that's the kind of thing I would have liked to have done. Seen him every year at birthdays and everything he's been through until the moment he's at the club. Yeah, it was really hard. So finally we decided. I decided on this phone call that he makes to Tris, and we worked on it a lot. But that became like this opening, and they were like, yeah, like this is the iconic opening we've all been looking for. Can you give Norah one? Equally iconic. And I was just like, yeah, no, of course not. Of course not.
Impossible.
We just want Lloyd Dobler, like something him holding up the stereo. If that could happen. Just, come up with that. Blink. Ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know what the question was.
Is someone going to give me a little sign when I'm supposed to open it up for questioning, or can I keep
Not
going
yet.
for a little while?
No one.
Keep going for a second? Okay, good. Doobie. What? Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep going for just 1 second.
I just want you guys to know the other folder that I brought
Oh, yeah. What's that?
is called, the label of this script is Ripple is the name. And it has something to do with dolphins. And at the top of it, it says, Screenplay by Lorene Scafaria, starring Ethan Hawke and Lorene Scafaria.
Oh, and Lorene Scafaria.
And Lorene Scafaria. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I had no idea it came out, but I hope it did very well. Starring.
That is
Me
awesome.
and Ethan Hawke.
Can we call out the freshman and embarrass her since she's here?
Oh, she's so mad at me.
Of course not.
Okay, we won't do that.
My inspirations,
The ladies of the team.
Liz Merriweather.
Awesomeness. Do you have ambitions to direct? And what have your experiences been like working with directors? And I'll ask another question that's not on the page because I find it interesting. How did watching your first movie that ever get made into a movie? How did that affect your writing after that? What did you learn?
I'm
about
screwed
writing?
now, I gotta say. I think, where do we start directing?
We got so many questions. Do you want to be a director? How
Yeah,
do you feel
I
about
want to
other
be a director. From directing theater, as you know, at a shoot town near you, I definitely always loved the idea of, working with actors and being in charge of everything. And so, yeah, that's always been a goal. I did a short, like 4 years ago that was just do that. Do a short. Just do a short. That is like the craziest learning experience I think there is. And edit it yourself because that will teach you so much about writing, rewriting, I think. I mean, that for me was the greatest experience I'd had in rewriting something was editing the short. So
how specifically, like, because you saw what didn't work and so
Yeah.
you were able to not do that the next
yeah,
time?
I saw
or-
it didn't work, but it's like a time for reinvention, and it's sort of it's just good to know that you can do that you can actually move large pieces around and have different results, that you can that you can like leave certain information out and suddenly it's more powerful. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a tendency to kind of front load everything, introductions to characters. Yeah, I'm at fault for that. I feel like, you kind of just want to tell the audience everything about a person right when you meet them. And then, in editing, I'd suddenly would remove some major, a line of dialogue or voiceover or something. And suddenly you don't have that information for 25 minutes. And isn't that actually much more interesting? So yeah, I think that's an incredible learning experience, of course. But yeah, I mean, directing that and in a way failing at that.
I disagree. I've seen it.
It's
really good.
No, it's just I don't know. The learning curve is pretty great on that. I hope to direct this script that I'm blocked on right now, called "Seeking a Friend for the End of the World," and it's this apocalyptic love story about a guy searching for love in the last few months on Earth. It's a story of impending doom, which I know well, and searching for that meaning in there. So I'm hoping to get to direct that. That's set up and was a bizarre challenge to sort of. I can't believe anyone's. The vote of confidence is overwhelming. So.
But it's the same people you worked with on Nick and Norah, so they were able to see that you were in the editing room, you were super helpful on the reshoots.
Sure.
I mean, the additional photography. So they were able to actually sort of see you in that capacity and watch you go through that whole process, and I think that's why they have the confidence.
And I think also to some degree, a certain type of writing kind of is directing. I'm not one to go overboard on, stage direction or anything like that. I kind of think that reading a script should be sort of like reading a book where you're filling in the blanks. You're actually still, you the reader are using your imagination. So I'm not one to like over describe too much, but it's still a visual thing. I mean, you're painting a picture, so you're telling people that we're starting on someone's feet, and then we're kind of seeing their legs and their knees, and maybe from that we actually know how they stand before, there you are in the reveal. So I think writing is directing in a way if you're doing it right.
This is gonna be my last question, so y'all can get your questions ready, because I'm gonna pounce on you and expect you to have questions real quick. No, my last question for you is kind of a weird one. It's kind of a hard question, so you may not have an answer to it. But one of the things I think that your screenplays, which I've read many of now by this point, are particularly great at, which I find incredibly hard, is that you obviously have these characters that feel really believable. You're obviously very funny. That's all there. But you have a singular ability to make scripts that are incredibly emotional, and they sneak up on you. Like, they're not trying too hard, but you just feel a lot when you're reading them. And then at the end, you find yourself crying, and it's over something that you just didn't see coming, and it seems really effortless. So
it is
for a person. It seems effortless in the script. I see you in life, and I know it's not effortless, but we struggle a lot together. But how do you make your scripts feel emotional? I mean, is that a crazy question? It's
I run real deep, Dana, and seen a lot. You know what it is? I think being a tomboy. This is true. I think being a tomboy as a child put me, in the mix with like boys and girls at a very early age, and I really enjoyed. I still enjoy watching people tremendously. I like watching and judging. Just watching people and observing, and it's the same reason that I like stories of identity and stories where you're sort of getting to know somebody. I think we all put these walls up, obviously, and there's a certain person you are in front of certain people, and then other people see the rest of you. So I think they're emotional just because I think the small details in life are emotional. I mean, the shows and the films that I love kind of carry that same, the BBC's The Office, like there's so much pain in like these tiny, tiny moments. Did anybody see The Wrestler yet? Has anyone seen that? Wrestler's so good, and it's painful. There's these moments where you're just seeing a guy in his day. You're just seeing him these 3 minutes on a Tuesday, and he just so happens to work. I don't want to ruin it. He just so happens to work at a place and like have an encounter with a person, and something can unravel him so easily. And it's because we're watching him in that kind of real time. We're like really experiencing what that's like to be in his skin. I really respond to those films. I really respond to those stories of a singular kind of man or woman. And I think like I don't know. I think it's from observing. You observe your parents over time. You kind of you see your dad in a different light, like for me every 5 minutes. So that has an effect on you, and that has an effect on the way in which you tell stories, and life just does sneak up on you. That's God, what are we talking about?
I know, sorry.
So friggin' philosophical. It's terrible.
Would you like to ask a question? I think that they're going to pass microphones to the people, to you people.
You people. You people.
Thank you both for being here. What are the pluses and minuses, assuming there are any pluses, of the challenge of incorporating notes into your work, and particularly notes from directors?
Oh, good question. Yeah, Dana. Yeah, incorporating notes. I mean, it's one of those things that here's my constant pattern of what happens. Someone tells me notes, and I'm like, well, that's awful. That's terrible. Everything you've said is pointless and ridiculous. And you've missed the you've missed the point entirely. Then I think about it for like a minute and realize that there's always notes behind the notes, and they're almost always right because someone's having like a visceral reaction to something. So even if they're not expressing it the way that your brain processes it, that there's something behind it because they're a human being having a reaction to a piece of work. So yeah, I usually go away with it and realize sort of. I mean, this is no offense to anyone who's ever given me notes, but maybe 20% of it you just kind of go, nah, I'm not going to do that. I don't like that. That doesn't, I'm going to do something later that's going to make that irrelevant. And then there's probably 20% of it that is going to be the biggest challenge. Kind of the struggle is sort of, you think you've cracked a code for yourself, and someone's not getting it, I find that reading to my mother out loud over the phone is an amazing way of actually exercising people's notes, because she's sort of, I don't know, I just decided that she's kind of like the audience. My mother's the audience. By the way, she loves my work. Very big fan. So big.
How many times has she seen Nick and Norah so far?
Oh, it was gross. I mean, it was really a disaster.
She saw my movie, What Happens in Vegas, which you're like,
Don't
you
do
don't need
that.
to see that a second time.
Don't do
she
that.
saw that like 5 times in the theater.
She
I love
loved
her
it.
so much. I was like,
She called you every time
every time.
afterwards.
The theater was half full. All right, lots of laughing. A lot of laughing. I'm like, okay.
She always tells me specifically, too, like, you would not believe it. There was an 80-year-old man.
Yeah, tells you who was
When
there.
she started vomiting, this guy, it's just always, yeah, she's a big fan. But reading to her, call my mother, and she's great with structure. I don't know what it is. I think hearing it out loud and sort of, getting that point of view from someone who, she doesn't read scripts for a living or anything, not that I know of. She's having that same sort of visceral reaction that kind of anybody would to a story that they're hearing for the first time. And so, yeah, I think for the most part, the note behind the note, there has to be a way to sort of like get rid of what's disturbing you about hearing it, and then hearing that. And with directors, shit, I mean, the truth is they're gonna have it for themselves eventually. So you really have to come to an understanding with each other. I mean, there are definitely things that I fought with Pete on. I would fight with any director that I'm kind of working with. Whatever it may be. But I'm sorry, I got distracted by a personal thought.
I know exactly what you
I know you do. And then, shit, don't be too well. So yeah, I think like when you're working with the director that it has to meet their vision. So I was working with a director who I think his work is kind of more sentimental, let's say, than what I usually do. But his ultimate vision, what he would bring to it, there's something that he does sentimental so well that like I want my script to be able to like feed what he does best, So yeah, there's a push and pull, and definitely with notes with the director, it's difficult, but you ultimately kind of have to bow down to their vision, and just make the best case for it. I mean, it's verbal reasoning is very important.
You're a lot stronger than I am. I'm always, when it's happening, just super afraid of being fired, because they make you feel like you could be fired at any point in time in the process, and it's part of how they sort of keep you doing what they want. And I'm not talking about directors. I'm talking about like the studio. so even if it isn't a threat, like an actual threat, it's there all the time. So I'm always like, how can I argue with them and make them think I love them all at the same time? Like, I'm always so much more like, tap dance pants. And she's like, I got problems. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't tell them.
I get really upset, but here's an embarrassing admission. I can't yell for too long without crying just a little bit. So I always am better on the phone because I could kind of hide my frustration and I'm crying. I'm a child. I'm crying a little bit. I'm a girl. It's really embarrassing. So I can fight until the moment where I feel it kind of happening there, and then I'm like I'll call you. I'll email you, and just hang up real quick. No, I mean you have to fight. You have to fight for that stuff. You can't write what you don't understand. So unless they're making their point perfectly clear and you can understand it in a way that allows you to then execute what it is they're talking about. I mean,
and I think your comment about the note behind the note is the single most important thing that you could possibly learn here tonight, because
nothing else will.
Well, I think I spent 3 or 4 years as a paid writer not understanding that. So I tried to literally address the notes exactly as they came in, because I was like, these people are right. I must be wrong. Okay, how do I do what they want me to do? And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I actually may know this story a little better than everyone else in the room. It's possible that I actually do. And I'm not saying that because I'm smart or whatever. It's because I've lived with it a lot longer than anyone else in the room has. And I do know probably a little bit more about it. And so anytime I get a note, I do the same thing. I say, okay, I don't really agree with this, or I don't really understand this. But there has to be a reason that they're giving it to me. What is the reason that they're giving it to me? Let me look at where it is in the script. Let me look at why. Okay, maybe it's actually a pacing problem and not a comedy problem. Maybe it's this. So that's, I think, the single smartest thing that we can do as writers.
Yeah.
It is. In terms
it's
of notes.
true. It's true, because, I mean, obviously executing notes directly, most of the time they're not expressing it necessarily the way that then you're going to execute it exactly as they ask for it.
And they don't care if you do. They just want it to work. They just want you to figure it out and you to make it work.
Right.
And if it works, then the note is gone.
If it works, then you tell them it was the greatest idea in the
have
world.
ever had.
Yeah. You've never gotten a note so good in your life. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, after the fact.
Do we have another question?
No, thank you.
Oh, I get to call. Oh my God, you. So much power. I don't know what to do with it.
Me neither.
Yeah.
A scene that, any film, doesn't matter, a scene that you sat and watched and went, damn, I wished I wrote that.
Oh, God. Yes, so many. Anytime Holly Hunter cries in broadcast news, that's so good. That's crazy. Manhattan, when he's making the tape, this was just something I was watching the other day. He's tape recording his favorite things to live for, basically, and he says Tracy's face, and then he kind of cracks a little bit, and it's a classic moment in any sort of romantic comedy, or it's become this beaten up moment in romantic comedies where they realize what they want and they go run after it. But I don't know. It's so subtle. It's so perfectly done, and it's I would say that moment. I get jealous when I watch Sofia Coppola's movies, maybe because I'm Italian, and I think she's just taken the reins of Italian girls everywhere. But yeah, no, I mean Manhattan. I wish I wrote Manhattan, right? Why the fuck not? Yeah.
That's when my dad was watching Wizard of Oz and turned to me and was like, just someday just try and write a really good one.
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
And then he said it again about Casablanca, and I was like, sure, Dad, I'll get to that.
My father, okay, Nick and Norah premiere. He's never read a script of mine, never, or anything. We all know what my whole life is about now, right? My dad.
Who in this room is it not about?
It's all wrapped
Let's
up.
all be honest.
Is it all about my dad for all of you? I would imagine it was. He's that larger than life. Yeah, so on the way, we just saw Nick and Norah for the first time, Toronto premiere, get back in the limo. Oh, I want to talk to you about one of your other scripts and how to make it better. Script you'd never read, giving me notes between the movie
And the
party. Yeah, on another script of mine. That propels me. Where did that go? I don't know. I feel like Mickey Rourke. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, here you go. Awesome polka dot shirt. Love it. Oh, I don't think your mic's on.
I can hear you from
there it
here.
is.
I bet I can hear you from here. Okay.
Okay, I'm curious about pitching. How often do you pitch an idea that you haven't written at all? You just got this quacky idea, and you're like, that sounds good. And then you end up, when you come up with the idea, do you feel like you have to like register with the Writers Guild before you take it out there, or do you just go out on blind faith?
Question.
Yeah, kind of blind faith. First of all, yeah. I mean,
But that's because you're an established writer with an agent and like a reputation.
well, that's the only
so-
reason I could get to pitch in the first place, right? I
Right,
mean-
but also you might want to protect yourself more if you weren't.
Well, I remember like a long time ago mailing things to myself and keeping them sealed, you know? Like I remember doing like the poor man's, right, there you go, poor man's copyright. I did that for a while. I still have them like sealed, like anyone's stealing my straight flush or something. But yeah, definitely one of these days, yeah, rippled shit. Yeah, I mean, pitching is its own sort of weird world, I think. I find it daunting because not the idea of getting up in front of them and sort of doing it, although it's completely unnatural, would be like, okay, picture it. It's like you're on Golden Girls, Sicily, 1938. Yeah, it feels completely unnatural, but it's like the kind of thing that you know they're used to it by now. So you getting in front of them, it's not that weird. I just find the ideas you kind of have to pitch are sort of like, you know, like liar liar. You know what I mean? Like you need like the poster or like Tom Hanks is or like.
Otherwise, they're going to say, great, it's an execution piece. Go write it.
Go write
and then
it.
we'll tell you if we want to buy it.
Write it well.
So
Yeah.
you don't pitch things unless the idea is pitchable, if that makes sense.
I pitched the idea of that immigration officer because I thought there must have been some kind of one-liner in there that, you know, oh, he investigates sham marriages and he's in a sham marriage himself, you know, like that's what's required is sort of like the, you know, 1.5 sentence version of the movie. So I find that weird. Pitching for TV is pretty cool. Until your shows never get made. But the pitching is kind of cool. It's trippy though. There's like 20 people in the room. You know, there's just so goddamn many people. You never did that? There's so many people in the room. I didn't understand it. So you got to, you know, make eye contact with every single person. You know what I'm talking about, you know. And you know, kind of figure out like who's unimportant. I've stared at an assistant for like a whole time and been like, and then, wait till you hear about this. Yeah, absolutely meaningless. But it's tough. I mean, the room is certainly, there are tougher rooms than others. When I just pitched for TV this last time, I don't know how much to say. When I just pitched for TV this last time, you know, there was like the rooms where like, okay, so I'm pitching a show. Okay, my dad gambled away my college money. Haha.
That's true. That's
So
also the show.
So yeah, so it happens, and then I deal with it, and then I try to write a show about it and sell it. So I
To make back some
went
of that
into-
college money that your dad gambled away.
right, yeah,
Just try to make back a little bit of your childhood that you lost. But anyway, go ahead.
yeah,
Keep talking.
piece
Sorry,
together
go
my
ahead.
broken heart and education. So yeah, he was okay with it though. Surprisingly, his desire to be famous in his own mind was like just trumped any embarrassment of gambling away my college money. So so I would pitch this in these rooms, and much like here, there's people who are like, that's awful and not funny at all. Like, that's terrible. So I'm like, so my dad gave away my college money. And they're just like, I don't want to see that. I don't ever want to see that. And then I have to keep talking for like 20 minutes and tell them the rest of my life. And so I ended up, this will be a segue into nothing. I ended up setting it up at HBO because what the show's ultimately about is after he gambled away my college money, I had to move back in with them and go to community college, which
It would be a great show.
hey,
You should pitch it directly to him.
So I was really excited about the world of community college. This happened to me, and so I set it up with them, and then had a meeting in which 3 weeks later had a meeting in which they told me they had a similar show. And could we get rid of the community college thing and just focus on your wacky family and the weird shit your dad does? And I was like, I don't know. Like suddenly it felt like very strange.
We have a competing project with your life.
Yeah, my brother pitched a show. No, so they're like telling me I'm in there and finding out that like the hook of my show is out of my show. So they're going, but what's the hook? What's the hook of the show? And I was like, well, it was fucking community college, but I have no idea now. I have no idea. And so they're having me talk more about my crazy family and stuff like that. And I mentioned something about how my dad has prostate cancer. And the guy goes, maybe that's the hook. And I like doubled over laughing. I was like, oh, I can't wait to call my dad. I can't wait to call my father.
Tell him his prostate
can't wait to
cancer
tell
is
him.
the new hook of your show.
And that was how he was telling me to fix my other script in Toronto, was give the
Prostate
character
cancer.
prostate cancer. So he would actually love it. But I was like kind of laughing, but I was so horrified because they were like kind of raping my life. And the room started to just shake like crazy. And I thought I was doing it, like, because I was so angry. But a hurricane was hitting. And just like...
Earthquake.
A hurricane. A hurricane. So yeah, this earthquake was hitting. And like everyone was like, get away from the window. And I just was sitting on the couch, like just dying of laughter, thinking like, this is fucked. I can't do this. So to answer your question,
Now,
pitching, right?
Also, if you want to pitch an idea, Hurricane.
Hurricane.
That's pitchable. Just in
Hurricane.
case you're curious.
What was the
As an
other one?
Torcano.
Torcano,
It
yeah.
was like when all the
Torcano.
disaster movies were coming out. They were
Yeah.
like, oh, you should totally do Hurricane. It's like a hurricane.
Someone had a good idea. It was called Hole. And it was like just everyone started to fall into a giant hole. I forget who said that.
The greatest thing I ever heard, the greatest Hollywood story I ever heard was a friend of mine was saying that he was in a development meeting and they were having a really hard time talking about tone because you always forget to talk about tone until you've written an entire screenplay and the tone is wrong and they're like, oh my God, what is this? But you never had the tone conversation because it just didn't come up. And so they were trying to come up with a tone and they were talking about tones and it wasn't making sense. And he said, well, can you give me a movie that it would be like? And the guy goes, Nacho Libre, but I haven't seen it.
That was what the studio executive said. That's awesome.
Yeah. I was told a lot, like, I'll deny I ever said this, but rip off Star Wars. That was one of my favorite quotes. I used to have these meetings with this one guy where we didn't do anything but just write quotes. Like, everything that he said, like, it was about Willy Wonka, I remember. It was like, oh, remember when the fat bitch got stuck in the purple thing? I'd be like,
And you were like,
slow down, slow down. I cannot wait to write about this.
oh, the
awful.
stories we could tell.
Yeah, I know. Sexual harassment. Let's talk about that.
We were thinking it would be funny to do a project, so if anyone wants to come up to us later, about taking actual stories of sexual harassment from the business and making them into like a how-to guide to sexually harassing a woman and like how to be more effective about sexual harassment so that we were going to use like actual emails,
yeah,
actual things that we had from our lives.
I'm naked right now. Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Because I work for you.
It's a
And that's
delicate balance
inappropriate.
of
I
like,
don't
oh,
wanna
I'm a cool girl. I can joke around about that kind of stuff. And then you're like, I've
You want me to
totally
do
opened
what?
the door for this. And, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm
It
reading.
was so funny.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a
Until you talk raped me.
yeah. E-rape. Yeah. I want to do something about like online college.
That's
I want to do a
Oh, we
story
talked
about like
that.
online college and like you have everything that kind of is going on in like a real college, but it's like online college. And it's like someone's like, I think I was just raped. Like, just like, I think that would be really good. Maybe just a sketch.
Does anybody else have questions?
I think there's always the desire to kind of pigeonhole somebody immediately. I'd say it happened more so in like as if in the early years of my career. After I'd written that children's adventure, there was a very strong desire to just strictly be like hey, you should just do children's adventures, which they're like impossible to write. There's just way too much going on. So
You were like, the first one was an accident and a mistake.
It was
I
an
don't know
accident.
why.
Yeah, it was a total accident, total mistake. So and my old writing partner and I, we were pressured into writing another. We aged it up. We went to high school. We got to go there with it, and we wrote a script that you will never see called "I'm a Teenage Alien." Any guesses what it was about? Kind of like Teen Wolf, but he's an alien. And instead of basketball, what all werewolves are good at, this alien was good at football, of course. So yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
obviously.
There was like always the pressure to kind of just stick to what and no one's asked me to work again after Nick and Norah, so I don't know. Probably.
That's a joke.
Yeah, no, it's sort of just at least for people who've like read any of these other scripts of mine, they've at least seen like it's pretty diverse, and it's the only teen movie in the lot. So other than Teenage Alien, which
I always find it so funny when people are concerned about, not you, I'm just saying when people get really concerned about being pigeonholed as something, it's like, I've just felt so lucky to be working at all. I was like, pigeonhole me, whatever you need to do. I don't care. Like, just give me another job, please.
I'm an artist, Dana.
Yeah,
Kind of need to be inspired, You gotta write what you know.
I'm a whore.
Yeah, she lives in a much bigger house than me. Yeah, no, I think there's. I don't think it's that bad, to be honest, what Dana's saying. It's not the end of the world if someone asks me to write, I don't know, Nick and Nora's infinite playlist, now more infinite than ever.
But you basically have gotten off of that people who are like, oh, she can write teen, she can write emotion, she can write about music, and she can write adaptations. It's like, well, that's cool.
You know what it really
right?
does? She can write girls, and then you get called up for all the girl stuff. I mean, that's honestly it. I am a girl. I just want everyone to know I am a real girl, and I was one since I was born.
You do have mouse parts, though.
Right, that's true. And Dana, yeah, but I find that's actually where the pigeonholing happens.
No, pigeonholing.
Pigeonholing.
The pigeons.
Pigeonholing. That's where that happens. Is like, hey, you can write
You're
characters.
supposed to let the pigeons go, but you hold them instead.
I don't know why we're
It
dwelling
actually
on
totally makes
this.
sense if you think about it. Like holding you back and holding the pigeon. Isn't it? Maybe it should be pigeonholing.
Pigeonhole. Pigeonhole. Isn't it? You're pigeonholed.
Is it? How is
You're
that as a
no.
whole?
HOLED. You're pigeonholed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I thought you were saying HOLD.
EDING. Writers on writing. You're welcome. This is not spellers on spelling or grammars on grammaring. Just stop it. You're an asshole because she actually, if you email her, you have something misspelled, and it goes to like
I'm
a
just
large
saying,
group of people.
it's and it's. They're two different words.
I don't know. Put the fucking thing in where the thing. I can't. It drives me crazy.
I'm in Mensa.
Not in text
so.
messages. Do whatever you want
Whatever.
in text messages. I don't care. But it's an email. Read it over before you send it. Not you. You can do whatever you want. But I'm saying guys who are trying to date you, read the emails
That's true.
over again. 'Cause
Yeah.
then I'm like not into it.
If you're not a good speller, you probably can't provide
Do
for me.
Do not.
When I give all this shit up soon.
Yeah.
Really soon. Right after this.
Do you have a question?
Hey, I completely
Hi.
respect your need for the apostrophe.
Thank you. I'm understood. I appreciate that.
It's just basic. What I'd like to know is actually I've seen both of your movies, and
Oh, jeez.
Your particular process for getting started in terms of, do you outline? How much do you outline? Do you do character background? I mean, how do you kind of get the whole thing sort of moving, and what your guys' particular process is?
Yeah.
I know you did an adaptation, but how it
Yeah, I mean,
try to get into so you can kind of have enough to get to that, enough structure and organization to know where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, it does sort of depend. If you're doing an adaptation, you kind of do have this, like, this. I mean, I was really lucky on Nick and Norah to have great source material, but you're kind of given the skeleton and you're given the world and all of that. So there's that, which is, I don't know. It's easier and more difficult, obviously. There's things to contend with. You want to be true to at least the tone and the spirit of a book. You want certain ideas that are in there to come to life. But that's obviously a different story. I've also written someone's true life story. That's fucked up. That's hard. That you're starting with way too much information and kind of whittling it down. I think that's insane. To study a life and decide what portions of it are cinematic is ridiculous. With that one, it was a story of a girl who she died in Iraq when she was 28. She was an aid worker who did relief work for civilian casualties of war, and met her family, met her friends, other colleagues, and I was a total fraud. I had to type exterior Iraq day. What am I doing? What business do I have of starting there was impossible. So with that one, it was endless note cards trying to map it out. Total Beautiful Mind style. Different colored index cards will help, to kind of track a particular character. Let me track this character, so everything that has him in it is blue. Different approaches for different kinds of things. With an original, I mean, where do you start?
I guess I try to stay in character as long as possible. I try and pretty much just think about who the main people are and only think about them for absolutely as long as I can until I run out of money and have to pitch it. And it's basically because I was told once a long time ago, women especially tend to be scared of structure. Don't be scared of structure. Structure is your friend. And I was like, it's not my friend, it's my enemy. It hates me, it keeps me up at night. And she said, structure is not plot, it's character. That's all it is. And it's just a character's journey. And it's an emotional journey that you're taking the audience on. And when you say words like emotional, I feel really comfortable. When you say things like character and journey, I feel comfortable. It's when you say plot, structure, that I get freaked out. So I stay in character for as long as possible. I was writing a movie recently, and I was just outlining what happened to this guy who was the main character of the movie. And I suddenly realized that 5 pages into my single-space document talking about what was happening to this guy, that was the outline. I was actually writing the movie. I was writing the story of the movie. So I just kept doing it that way, and I just went on and on and on through his specific story of who he was and what was happening to him in life. And that was the movie. So it can comfort you if structure makes you nervous or freaks you out to just think of it as character.
Well, that should be how you. I mean, I think a lot of the times that should kind of be where the plot comes from. Obviously, this person is, if characters are the choices that they make. I mean, that's really how you're kind of, unless there's endless voiceover, it really is. You want to see a character, how that character reacts to a certain situation. I mean, that's the best way to kind of. Once we talked about, right? I mean, that opening scene where he gets ripped off by this guy, but he kind of ends up hugging him and exactly who that guy is when he's kind of hugging this other guy who ripped him off 5 seconds before, So seeing someone react to something, I mean, that's obviously the way to sort of develop who they are. And then that's exactly right. I mean, how they're going to react is going to bring about what happens next and what happens next. We talked about this, what the Coen brothers kind of do, which I don't even know if this is true. I was told this, so hopefully it is.
By the way, this put so much pressure on me. I felt like, I don't know that we want to tell these people that. I've stressed out about that for 2 weeks afterwards.
Why?
They write each other into corners?
Yeah, they write each other into these corners. So one will write the character into, you know, a situation and then like pass the script off, and the other one will
And they
have
try
to
and
like
write each other into like unsolvable situations. And they're like, haha, here you go. And then the other person has
which
to
my
be
writing
like,
partner and I were doing. We just didn't realize it at the time. He's like,
It was
screw
just
you.
a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. But
No Country for Old Men didn't come out of that.
no, somehow. No, but I think that does something really interesting to structure and plot. Obviously, the structure and plot of their the plotting of their movies there's something going on there that like you are on a ride. I mean, that you turn the corner every 10 minutes or 10 pages, and like.
And I think the other thing is like, don't fight your own human nature. Like whoever you are, the only important thing is that you find out what your perfect process is and that you work towards that.
No, do it my way.
Or,
Really.
or do it Lorene's way.
Yeah.
No, because if you are someone who is really verbal and who likes to collaborate with other people, but you don't necessarily have a writing partner, like myself, I tend to tell the story over and over and over again to as many people who I can get to. Poor people, listen to me. Strangers, people they're like, I just want to give you your coffee. Like, I don't understand why you're talking to me so much. And I'll tell the story over and over and over again until almost everyone I tell it to goes, oh, that's really good. Like, that's a really good story.
Ooh.
So
I was in therapy and didn't have anything to say that day. And she was like, what's going
Back
on? And
before
I was
the
like, to
economy
be
fell apart,
honest,
yeah.
right, now I can't afford it, obviously. But yeah, no, I was sitting there and I was like, nothing to say to you today. But to be honest, I'm like, can't stop thinking about this fucking project that I'm working on. I can't like crack this story. And I was like, can I tell you what he's up to? Like what this guy is up to? She had amazing insight.
it is
was
psychology.
incredible.
Your characters' lives are
No, it's true.
psychology.
Yeah, and I mean, I think cracking that code, you know, trying to, I mean, I don't know if people usually do this, but it can get to the point where you sort of understand a character so much, like you kind of figured out sort of zodiac signs and like, you know, just how they tick, obviously, and it gets creepy. But I think that's the way to sort of allow a character to be like plotting out organically rather than saying like, oh, I mean, you know, there are stories where obviously you know it has to go a certain place. You know you want to end up somewhere. That can be harder, obviously, but probably keep you on point a little bit.
Yeah, and if you're
better.
someone who is okay with the unknown, write into the unknown. Like be like Lorene and just start, and don't worry if you don't know exactly where the first 30 is going, but you have an idea of where it goes after that. I'm type A, crazy, stressed out all the time. I have to like beat it all out before I start, and then I can, once I have that in front of me, diverge from it. As long as I know I have the map, I put the map on the side of the car and I just go, okay, fine, I'll just drive. I know where I'm going. So I need to do the map and then ignore the map and then drive.
I
So
need
just
to draw the map and then
sing the map.
sing the map. Yeah. Throw up the map.
Totally
and
internalize the
then
map. Eat the map. vomit
Masturbate
the
with the map.
out.
And then, and then I'm good. Smoke the map. Roll it and smoke it.
Right here, and then you.
I was wondering if you could talk about how you got your first representation or agent, or how you got people to read your stuff to be like, I like you.
Yeah, because that was hard, right?
That's hard.
I know. There was like how many years where you just wanted someone to like look at a word that you put down. I mean, that's like the most painful time. It really, really is. It gets better, I think. Yeah, you know, I was living in New York and I was answering phones at a film company, and I was writing and on their computer and, you know, using all their all their paper and stationery to send out query letters to different agents. And I did a lot of research online of which agents represented first-time writers that had sold stuff. So I found this woman who. I mean, I'd found a lot of people. There was a whole list, but this one person actually called me back. Yeah. So I sent out a query letter. I think she liked the titles of my things. I think that was what, I mean, because what is there in a query letter? You can't really like jam pack it full of your, you know, personality and spray it with perfume and stuff. So, yeah, I think she liked the titles of it, and so she sent me, you know, an email saying that she would read one of my scripts. So I sent it to her, and she liked it. And she said, can I read one of your other scripts? And I said, okay. So I gave her another one. She liked it. And then we met out here in LA. I was like out for just a trip. And she said, you need to move to LA. Like, you have to move to LA. So I went back to New York, and I packed up my car, and I drove across the country. And she left ICM and went to CAA while I was like halfway across the country. And I couldn't find her. And moving to Los Angeles, because I think I have her. And when I got here, I had nothing. So I think she used the term hip pocketing. I heard the words hip pocketing once. That was about it. And so it was kind of just starting over right when I got here. And
People might not know what hip pocketing is.
I don't either. It's a horseshit term for I might call you in the next 3 months. So it was, that was tough just to think that I had something, and then that was it. And so my old roommate and I were kind of just writing, and we met a guy who, he wasn't an agent yet. He was like an agent in training. And somehow, when we finished our script, that children's adventure, we became his first clients, and he became, an agent. So it was kind of just meeting someone else on the rise, and hoping that between, whoever the senior agent is, whoever this, whatever this company kind of stands for, that they'll be there to sort of take care of both of you on the way. And yeah, we kind of grew together, but yeah, after 3 years, yeah, grew apart. It was so sad. I was like, I'm not good with confrontation like that, like hurting people. So that was really, really bad. And, but, eventually you kind of, you do like kind of grow out of people, just like any sort of relationship. And you find better fits. I mean, that's all it is. It's not that someone's bad at their job. It's just, what their taste may be. I mean, it's so hard to find, you want to just find someone that'll like work for you, period, let alone someone who like shares your ideas and kind of in your vision, and it is looking at long-term goals for you. So it's tough to sort of eventually kind of make that real fit. But that was the beginning, at least, of people reading my work, and someone out there saying my long unpronounceable name to people. So yeah.
Oh, did you have a question? Oh, here's your microphone.
Okay. So I had heard about the story about how you moved to LA, how someone told you that it would be better for you to move to LA. What advice would you have for writers who are debating on whether to live in New York or LA, like the industry? What advice do you have? Like, what are the pros and cons?
It's so tough because I mean, I had a hard time in New York, but at the same time, I'm not sure that the material I was churning out was gonna, wow anybody back then anyway. There's so much more production here, obviously. I mean, it's getting better in New York again. I mean, there's incentives there, so hopefully, I mean, I was so fortunate that we got to shoot in New York. I mean, that could have very easily been Toronto and been a completely different movie. So yeah, as far as where to live, I mean, if you want to be staffed on a television show, there's like a lot more production.
I have a much stronger opinion about that, which is like, I think you have to live here, and I think you have to start here. And I think if you establish your career, you can move anywhere you want after that. If you hate LA so much you want to die, move back to New York. But no, I don't mean you. I just mean if one hates LA so much they want to die, then if you have a career, you can go anywhere you want. Nobody has to know where you are, especially if you're writing features. It takes you 3 months to write a feature. You're wherever you want to be. You fly back in for a meeting. People don't even know if you live here or not. I mean, it's like, I think that would be my advice. I just think it's very hard to like actually be here to take advantage of opportunities or actually take advantage of opportunities if you're not here.
That's, I mean, I think the weirder thing is once you realize that it's like the tiniest town here, and like, you go into these, you run into people everywhere. There's something to be said for that kind of, social networking in a way. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Dana that moving here is obviously a better idea in my opinion. But there are writers who do well in other cities, and
they move here eventually because we won't let
we
them leave.
lure them here. Liz Merriweather. Yeah, no, it's obviously better to sort of at least just, you can bump into someone and be a part of it. You can, I think people are sort of more invested in you because that.
Oh, and I had one other little idea for you in terms of getting people to read stuff. I think if you can possibly get a job as an assistant to anyone who, if you eventually showed them your work, would be able to help you, that's a really smart way of doing it because, I have an assistant who is a great writer and, she has access to me and can show me stuff and I can do stuff for her. And, I can't do that for a lot of people because I'm super busy and, crazy, but because she works with me,
Yeah, but be a writer's assistant.
But
Yeah.
if you can
Don't,
get,
I mean,
if you can get a job
answering
as being
phones at a
writer's
film
assistant.
company, you'd be surprised how little doors that opens because everyone
Yeah.
views you as the receptionist for
Yeah,
like,
but I was a
the
writer's
rest of
assistant for
time.
like 5 years to 3 different people, and they all would have helped me. I mean, they all would have read my stuff if I'd ever written anything. I talked a lot about writing, I didn't write, but if I had actually written something, I could have showed it to them, and I eventually did. I mean, they weren't the people that did stuff for me, but through them, I met other people who were the people that actually were able to help me. So.
Dane had a much more like sober approach to the whole world. I mean, you did. You worked for television shows. You were constantly in the mix without. I was like in my jammies for 3.5 years, but it looked like work somewhere.
One more question. Who's the lucky winner of the one more question? Or is there not going to be one? Oh, yay. Oh, it's a comment? Can you make your voice go up at the end of it
lilt
so it
a little
sounds like a
bit.
question?
Voice made for stage. That's all Morgan. A comment I wanted to share with you, because I've worked in television, I'm a stand-up comic professionally, and you said about you're always worried about your job being fired. They do it to everyone. If it wasn't for Screen Actors Guild, the producers would tell the actresses, especially the actresses, that there's 12 people lined up for your job. And if it wasn't for SAG, you'd be paying them, the producers, to be in the movie.
But I think, just to maybe even end on something like that, I think what's sort of important to do is, just like anything else, like you do kind of want to brand yourself as something. I mean, because anybody can like type, right? That, you sort of need to differentiate yourself in some way that's going to have it be like, we can't possibly fire her because we are, in business for this particular voice or there's something to it that is like, it's uniquely you. I think it's important to, sort of create a brand for yourself so that you hopefully can hang on as until your script just dies on the vine and you're not fired, but it just is in shelfhood forever. No, I think it's just really important to create a voice for yourself that is distinct. So that, I mean, don't you feel that way? So that because it's so easy to get like, hey, we know this other really funny guy, or I mean, it's just that easy.
And people. I mean, I used to say the word brand all the time when I was trying to start out. I was like, I'm trying to establish a brand here. I am a brand. I am my own brand. I am the brand. And my idea for myself was like, I was like, oh, by the way, I have a perfume coming out in like 2 months, just so you guys know.
It's called Vegas.
It's called that.
Vegas.
It smells really cheap and
Boozy.
kind of slutty.
Kind of boozy.
But yeah, no, that's like a hugely important comment. Like, make yourself known for whatever it is that you think is your strength that you want to be known for. And, for me, I chose to try, I think, to be a female writer who was known for doing pretty well with male voices as well. So I write for men and I can write for women. So people love to put you on like lists and they love to like,
oh yeah,
they're like, oh, this is the list that does this. And it's like, I'm on a list with probably not that many people of like women who can also write male characters who writes comedy, and like she's on a very short list of like women who write good comedy. I mean, so figure out
we're
what
on the
your
same list.
We gotta go. I'll talk to you guys later.
Just got
I gotta get home and
competitive.
start working.
I gotta
I'll see you
get
guys.
on a spec immediately.
Like we're super competitive.
I gotta get on it.
But yeah, so figure out what your brand is. That's a great idea, and just kind of be that brand as much as you can.
Pigeon holding.
Pigeonhold
yourself. Yeah.
Is what we're talking about. Just hold your own pigeon.
Hold your pigeons. If you've learned nothing today, it's hold your pigeons.
T-shirts made. So I think we have to break now because we're done. But thank you guys
Thanks,
so much
guys.
for coming, for the lovely Lorene Scafaria.